Welcome back to Screenfish Radio. I'm so glad you could join us here for our 200th episode, Spectacular. And when you have a spectacular episode, you have spectacular guests. And I'm so glad to have back for the first time, or here for the first time, Ally LaMere-Shedden, and back for the 800th time, Dave Voigt from In the Seats. Thank you both for joining me. I'm so glad you could be here today.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
I'm so excited.
I'm honestly so glad you're here. And partially, I mean, because it's our 200th episode, very special episode for us. And I know for me, I still remember, I guess it was like 8 years ago, we had our first episode. It was like 30 minutes long. And we talked about Avengers Age of Ultron. And we had no idea what we were doing at all. It was like just me sitting over a microphone, no video, and just trying to figure it out, right? And so here we are. I'm actually thrilled to be here. And this week, for our special episode, we are going to talk about Batman, but not just Batman himself. We are going to talk specifically about the 90s films, the 4 classic films from the 1990s: Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. All were received very differently. The superior Batman?
The superior Batman. That's why I'm here. That's why that reasoning is the only reason why I'm here, because it's the superior Batman.
See, this is what I want to talk about. Obviously, you know, with just The Flash having just come out and a nostalgia fest of the Flash and everything that was there. It seems appropriate for us to step back into the 90s a little bit and look at how we got, or at least the beginnings, and I say beginnings in quotes because there was one film in 1966 with Adam West and the crew from that, but really the cinematic beginnings of Batman. For those who are unaware, the Batman franchise began in 1989, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. As the Joker intends to take over Gotham City using a special toxin which could poison the people to look like him. And from there, Burton did another entry, Batman Returns, which starred Michelle Pfeiffer, Danny DeVito, and Keaton again, moving into the Neon era with Val Kilmer as Batman, directed by Joel Schumacher.
Techno Batman.
The Techno Batman, yes.
Techno Batman.
Starring Jim Carrey and, oh my gosh, who was Tommy Lee Jones? Tommy Lee Jones. And
Val Kilmer, Nicole Kidman.
Val Kilmer and Drew Barrymore.
Yes, she was in it briefly, wasn't she?
Yeah. And who was the dark? Because she was like the angel, and who was the devil on Two-Face's other side?
Oh, she was a mom.
What's her name? She was the.
There was Sugar and Spice. She was Sugar.
I don't know.
Debbie Mazar? Is it Debbie Mazar?
Was it Debbie Mazar?
You know what? This is going to date me aggressively. And that is that I remember her as the evil stepmom from Beethoven 2. Okay. She had Beethoven's lover, and she like kept Beethoven's lover from him. And that's who I remember her as. Yes, it is.
Chris O'Donnell. Let's not forget Chris O'Donnell.
Oh yeah. What a babe.
O'Donnell.
And you know, once we get there, we can talk about this, because I was watching it last night.
And it was Debbie Mazar.
It was Debbie
Mazar. Yeah. And so I was watching Batman Forever last night, and my favorite is that, you know, obviously Robin's parents die in a horrific circus accident, but then they're like, this kid, this poor kid, and he has no one. And I was like, the dude is 30. Like, he's fine. He doesn't need to be taken in. Like,
It's
Chris
true.
O'Donnell, he does his own laundry. He's fine. He can move into an apartment. His parents probably had life insurance. They're circus performers. Like, he would be fine. He doesn't need Bruce Wayne to take care of him and accidentally have him discover the Batcave. Like, it was a completely unnecessary plot line, but I mean, I was here for it. I really enjoyed it. But I was, you know, busting a gut last night thinking that this Chris O'Donnell was about, how old was he at the time? Does anyone know?
About 25, I want to say.
Yeah.
He drives up on his own bike.
He drives up on his own bike, and he's like, this is happening. Like, Val Kilmer's like, this is happening again. The kid has no one. I was like, the kid's fine. Like, He's fine. But yeah, what a cinematic achievement that movie was. Let me tell you, it's great.
And of course, concluding with George Clooney as Batman, with Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, Arnold Schwarzenegger at the height of his powers.
Nice to
Mr.
meet you.
Freeze,
Like,
and
so
Uma
good.
Thurman.
Every girl wanted to be Uma Thurman in the late 90s, I guess. Every girl wanted to be Uma Thurman with like a compact that they could open and blow the like pheromones at men and have them love you. Like, ugh, iconic.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, this is sort of unnecessary, but as always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers. If you haven't seen these movies that are almost over 30 years old, just so you know, there's some spoilers for this.
100%. Yeah. 100%. But also, if you haven't seen these movies, A, what are you doing with your life? And B, why are you listening to this podcast about these movies? Because it's 30 years old. Like, go watch them first and then come back because they're great.
Well, great. That's a great start then. I guess, Ally, you've shown your hand, but my question is, what do you think of the old Batman films?
Oh man, fantastic. They're so good. They were, when I think about superhero movies now, you think about Marvel, you think about DC, like even with the new release of The Flash and it being, them kind of stepping into the multiverse madness of it all. They were simpler back then, right? Like the movies were just, they were so outlandish that it was like, there's no way this could happen in real life. But with the 1989 in particular, it was a superhero movie, but it was also kind of just like a cop movie, right? Like it was like a villain, like Cops and Robbers almost, with Jack Nicholson just being a bad guy. And I think that, things have gotten a lot more deeper and a lot more complex in terms of backstories for villains, but we talked about this a little bit at the beginning. But the idea of Jack Nicholson just like being dumped into essentially battery acid, whatever he gets dumped into that causes him to become the Joker, like I get that motive. Like he ruined my face and I'm going to hurt him now, and that's the only motive that he has really for hurting Batman, is that he like ruined his Jack Nicholson face. So, and I get that, but now I mean the Joker is a lot darker, right? Like with Joaquin Phoenix, it was the world has failed you. So I think that this franchise really was, it was a simpler time. Looking back, it was a simpler time, but it was a lot of fun. It was just, you were there to have a good time and to see, the good guy win at the end of the day, which was really fun. And, the Technicolors didn't hurt anybody.
Well, they kind of did. They were so blinding. You needed, sunglasses to watch the last two Batman films.
Maybe, yeah. But like when you get to the second half of the franchise, when it's like when Robin is going downtown, like everybody's in neon colored paint for some reason, and I just like, it's so unnecessary, but so wonderful, so wonderful. Such a great franchise.
Absolutely. Dave, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I just think it's interesting that, we have such fond memories for this franchise, especially with the first one, considering that on the first Batman, Jack actually had top billing over Keaton on the movie.
That's interesting.
Yeah, his name
was he a bigger star at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was like, you have to understand, and again, I'm going to date myself, 1989 was the year I was born. I know, I'm sorry. Listen, I was born in the late 1900s.
No,
I was 12.
The late 1900s. But I was. So like, I didn't get to watch this until Michael Keaton was a much bigger star, right? So like, I watched it back, whatever, when I became of age to watch these movies. But yeah, I mean, in my head, even looking back on it, because I was not, I was around, but I wasn't, cognizant enough to realize what Michael Keaton was at the time. But looking at Michael Keaton now, like in The Flash versus Michael Keaton then, like in my head, they're two separate people. Like, because Michael Keaton is Michael Keaton now to me. But when you look at him with like his black hair and his kind of like weird, like grimacing look that he does through all of 1989's Batman, this like weird, like snaky kind of vibe. It's like a completely different person to me. But I'm sure he isn't to you guys. I'm sure that's him aging throughout the years.
Well, Steve and I remember seeing this in the theater, so
Ooh, I am a child.
Well,
Oh, that's right. Oh God, yeah, that's right. I'm the only one who saw it on first run.
yeah, I didn't either. But it wasn't. But for me, it was a different reason. It wasn't that I was just born. I was 12, but I remember the conversations with my parents. My parents were very protective, and they said, "Why does Batman have to be so dark? Why is that? I don't want him to. I don't want." So they
Because
didn't
he's
take
rich
me.
and mad. Does he need a better reason? He's rich,
It's
he's
true.
mad, and his parents were killed. God, it's enough to send anyone over the edge.
But in our house, this was the first Batman film, and the only memory of Batman was 1966, which my parents, saw when they were younger, and they so I didn't see the first two in theaters. I went back and rewatched them. I saw Batman on video. I didn't see. I saw them both on video after they came out, but I didn't see. I saw the first one I saw in theaters was Forever. But so Dave will have to forgive me a little bit on that one, but go
Well,
ahead.
no, but I mean, I'm glad you brought up video as well, because I mean, it's definitely one of the first movies as well that I can remember wanting to have and wanting to have a copy of, and needing sort of that tactile sort of ability to be able to watch it again and again. Batman on VHS back in the day was huge and definitely very formative, not just in the continuation of the franchise, but just the entertainment industry in general, because I mean, they made a boatload of money off of all those VHS sales.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad. I was watching Chandler Levack's I Like Movies recently when they were in the VHS store, right? And I was like, man, movies had such a long lifespan back then, right? Like, oh, sorry, we're out of copies of this. And you had to come back 3 weeks later to get a copy of that movie to be able to see it for the first time. And they just such a long lifespan. Whereas now movies are like, oh, 45-day window from theatrical into VOD. And then if it doesn't succeed opening weekend, there it goes. It's gone to be buried. Right. And so the lifespan is like, I mean, Marvel movies aside, because they are their own beast, but like lifespans of smaller independent films, sometimes in theatrical and VOD, it's like 6 months, maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe.
It's
So, and that's sad.
and you say that about Marvel, lifespan about Marvel. I think Marvel has a lifespan, but films are forgotten like that. Like
Yeah.
they're discussed for the first 2 weeks and they disappear. And then they show up in your house, which we didn't have then. But this was one thing I was trying to explain to my kids. I showed them Batman and Robin for the first time. They'd never seen it. Which is funny because I had shown
What a treat.
my oldest had seen the Dark Knight trilogy, and this was his
No.
first non-Dark Knight trilogy Batman, and they just kept saying, "Why is he shiny?" It was like
Amazing.
so different for
Amazing.
them.
Which
But
is funny because when I watch Dark Knight, I'm like, why is he so dark? Like, where are the colors? This is not the Batman that we
Why is he
deserve.
talking like this?
Why? Yeah, exactly. But honestly, like they're genuinely, the Dark Knight trilogy are great films. Like they're really great movies. You can watch them all the way through. Everyone will enjoy them. But there's just something about the camp that Adam West had, that Michael Keaton had, that Val Kilmer, that George Clooney had, that Christian Bale did not, right? Like they lost the camp. They're like, let's go more serious. And I was like, no, I want you to run across a dock with a bomb, please. Like that's what I want. So, I mean, putting
What's
that
it gonna do
aside,
to get rid of a bomb these
someday,
days?
yeah,
oh no, Batman, right? Like that's
Oh
holy
no, the
smokes,
nuns!
Batman. Like
Oh
that's
no,
the
the
Batman that I
children!
want. Yeah, that's the Batman
the
that I want. And I
ducks and
think that they realized that. I think that they realized that Batman is like, yes, he can be dark, but people really enjoyed the camp. And I think that bringing Michael Keaton back for the Flash, like it was fan service, and that the people want that era of filmmaking back.
Do we?
Maybe.
That's a
I
great
do.
question.
I
Do you
do. I
really?
would love that. I would love Techno Batman to come back. I mean, the new, I mean, the Batman, Robert Pattinson's the Batman, from whenever that was, last year, 2022, 2021. very dark. Really enjoyed it. I also really liked the like kind of when he takes his mask off, and everyone said like they were calling him emo Batman because when he takes his mask off, he's covered in black eye makeup. But to me, I'm like, yes, he has to put on black eye makeup. Have you not seen under the mask? Like every mask, there's black eye makeup. And the fact that we're ignoring that it's there makes no sense. Right. So he takes it off. He's covered in black eye makeup. Like, yeah, that's what Batman's going to look like after a night of fighting crime in Gotham. Like, that's what he's going to look like. And so that's more like it's dark, but it still has that campy aspect that the Dark Knight trilogy didn't have, to make him like emo Batman, to put like Wayne Manor, for example, in the Batman. It's 2022. I just looked it up. The Batman 2022. It's like gothic, right? Like it's like a castle that he lives in, as opposed to just like he lives in a mansion. He's a rich guy. It brings back, it's dark camp as opposed to just dark. And so I think people like it. I mean, I like it. I really enjoy it. It was long. It's 3 hours, but I saw it twice in theaters. So
But if you
I'm a
could have
Batman
that back,
fanatic.
if you could have it back, those
Yeah.
films, and have them made today, would you actually want those? Like, would you want? And I'm not saying I want to put your
Oh
nostalgia
yeah.
for the films aside,
Okay. Putting the nostalgia aside,
just for a brief moment.
would I go and watch Batman and Robin in theaters today if it came out
Yeah,
today? 100%. 100%.
fascinating.
100%. Yeah, for sure I would. But
I
I
mean,
also like, I don't really like Marvel movies all that much, which is kind of interesting. But I saw Ant-Man Quantumania, and I know that got like destroyed in reviews. People hated it. I liked it. I was like, it's fun, world building. Like, there's all these weird characters making weird little jokes. Like, I don't know. I like the camp when I'm in there. I'm there to be entertained. I'm not there for like some massive cinematic journey that you're taking through these 47 worlds and I have to watch 73. Like, I'm not here for that. I'm here to sit down, have a really good time, and Batman Forever and Batman and Robin gave that to their audiences, just there to have a good time.
well, I mean, I think that's what you're speaking to, Steve, because I mean, I'm agreeing with Ally. I would definitely like those back because I think it really comes down to just sort of, it's not necessarily fatigue for comic books or those kind of movies. It's fatigue for everything has to be a universe. Everything
Yeah.
has to
Right.
connect. Everything has to flow through the other one. It's like,
Yeah.
why can't we just have a bit of standalone fun? Okay, if there's a little thread to go to the next one, that's great. But why does it have to be about the universe building?
I had to read an article before going to see Ant-Man, like a full article to go see it, because I had never seen any of the Ant-Man movies, and I was like, one of my girlfriends were like, let's go see a movie tonight, and we're like, Ant-Man's really the only thing that's out right now, I guess we'll go see it. And I was like, guess I'll start my research now. Like, and I had to read a whole article, and I mean, it worked as a standalone because there was this whole other world they were going into. But did I know why? Oh, did I know why Michelle Pfeiffer was in this weird thing? Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer. See, maybe I just love Michelle Pfeiffer. Maybe that's what it really is. At the end of the day, maybe I'm just a massive Michelle Pfeiffer fan. But did I know why she was like stuck in this universe? No, I had no idea. But did I really like that they went into this quantum universe and there was all these little people, and it kind of felt a little Star Warsy with like the worlds that they were going into? I liked it. I had a nice time. And then I left and I heard that it got destroyed. But I think maybe it got destroyed with critics because people watched the other movies. Maybe if they had judged it as a standalone film and not a universe, they would have felt differently.
Well, I have heard people say that Marvel's at its best when they make standalone films and then tie it in with a post credit. And I
Mm.
think that that's pretty fair. Like I remember when Iron Man 2 came out, one of the things I hated so much about it, and I still hate, is how many things they tried to force into it. Like I know people don't like Iron Man 3 because of all sorts of reasons, and people don't and Iron Man is its own thing, but they are separate films loosely tied with a post credit that tie it into a bigger thing. And it's not like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we got to steer the ship towards the next Avengers film or anything like that. So like Shang-Chi actually did that very well. Like Shang-Chi is a standalone film and then a post credit scene that says, "Hey, we're going to do this with it." Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But it is
Mm-hmm.
funny too because the way, looking back at these old movies, one of the things that I had to explain to my kids is like you don't understand. We had to wait 3 years between films every time. And like there
Yeah.
was nothing in between. I mean, there were comic book films, but like Dick Tracy in 1990 or The Shadow or The Phantom, ones that weren't received well,
Oh,
although
the
I think Dick
Phantom.
Tracy is phenomenal.
I have a quote from the Phantom in my email signature at work because I think, frankly, it was passed over for the Oscars. Phenomenal
wait,
film.
wait,
Billy
wait,
Zane,
wait.
purple jumpsuit, white horse, incredible. See, it's the camp. It's the camp. I'm all for
And the
it. I'm all
Shadow's
for the camp.
awesome, so you're never gonna get me off the Shadow. So
I love the Phantom. I love that movie. So good. So good. So
Passed
good.
over for the Oscars?
100%. 100%.
See,
Superhero movie of the year.
I'll give
Make a new
Dave The
category.
Shadow. I can't give you The Phantom.
Superhero movie of the year. 1999.
this might be why she's a film publicist.
Maybe. Maybe. It's like, sorry, you like the Phantom? Like you want to work in the indies? Yeah, but no, I thought the Phantom was great. I love the camp. I eat up superhero camp. So that's probably why. It's the campiest of the camp, right? Like it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Billy Zane, like, I mean, it was made purely exclusively for my enjoyment because no one else liked it. It was just me.
And I mean, to
sorry,
have
Billy Zane.
that standalone nature is enjoyable. And I mean, just to tie it back to Batman and the Flash, I mean, I think that's why there's been such a burst of nostalgia, especially with Keaton coming back as Batman, because the way they set up this film, even with the myriad of delays and the changes and everything that happened, the way they engineered this movie, if it was a hit, they could do another one and then kind of retcon it and work it into whatever James Gunn is doing for the DC universe. If it flopped, which it looks like, yeah, kind of sort of more or less has, okay, it was a throwaway, it's fun, it's fine. Next.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to come back to this idea because I think I want to talk a little bit about how our relationship to Batman specifically and these films has changed. But before we do that, there's one other thing I just want to say about these old films. They're stinking gorgeous.
Yeah.
They are gorgeous. And I'm not talking about like, what we get now with CGI worlds and stuff, which is beautiful in its own right. I'm talking classic matte paintings. I'm talking physical sets.
Yeah, I think that's the Tim Burton of it though, right? Like this was Tim Burton like at his prime, and then is it Schumacher? Is that his name?
Is Schumacher and
Joel?
Schumacher did
Yeah, it's
two,
Tim
and then
Burton. He
Burton
did
did
he did
two.
the final two, and then Burton
Yeah.
did two, and like Tim Burton set it up for him, right? And then Schumacher took it and was like, let's paint it neon. But that was Tim Burton. Tim Burton at his height when he was doing like Edward Scissorhands, and he was doing like, it was incredible world building and incredible set building. And this is officially the only time that I get to use my analytical film degree from McMaster. And that's what I'm going to say, that Tim Burton like really draws from German expressionist film, where the outside set essentially represents the character's internal world. They started it with like the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is, Edward Scissorhands steals from that a lot, where this, when you are in the town, everything's peachy and pastels and light. And then you go to Edward Scissorhands' house and it's like dark and horrible. And Tim Burton really draws from that quite a bit. And he did that in this film, where it's like the world is shitty, or I'm not going to swear, the world is bad, and the Gotham is bad, and Batman's here to save it, so everything is dark, right? And then when it went to the techno, it's like, we want to add some color in it, but we still want everything to be dark. And neon doesn't compute to the human brain the same way pastel does. Like neon still feels like, it doesn't feel light and airy, it feels like electric, right? So it kind of adds that electric vibe to the dark sets that Tim Burton didn't.
Oh, honey, you are a film critic.
I know. I know. I know. No, it's like, listen, this is what I went to school for. I love movies. But yeah.
I think you're so right. And I mean, honestly, one of the things that Keaton left the franchise for, I mean, left it because of, apparently he had multiple meetings with Schumacher, and Schumacher just kept saying to him, "Why does he have to be so dark? Why does he have to be so sad?" And Keaton was like, "This is all
Love
about
that.
Bruce Wayne." And it's and at least in Batman Forever, Burton has his hand on it. He
Yeah.
takes his hand
Yeah,
off
he
the
was an
wheel in the
EP,
fourth one.
right?
He was the
I
Yeah.
saw that.
EP.
He was an EP. Yeah.
Yeah, in Batman and Robin, he takes his hand off the wheel and the car spins wildly in every direction.
Don't you dare talk about that movie that way. That is the best movie.
No, but I
Oh
mean,
man.
in all iterations, Bruce Wayne is a tortured soul. He
Yeah.
has to be a tortured
Yes.
soul. I mean,
Mhm.
even in Batman and in Robin, when he's, the playboy, he's still a bit of a tortured soul because he's, getting older and looking for family and, all that kind of fun stuff. But you can't play Bruce Wayne as simple
Happy.
or happy. I mean, even when
Happy.
you go back to Adam West, there was still this little bit of, standoffishness with the women and this, and just, oh, well, and
Yeah.
oh, okay there, Miss Korolenko, whatever, there has to be a tortured aloofness to what it means to be Bruce Wayne.
Mhm.
Interesting. Yeah. Um, eh, but it's funny, like I think one of the things about Batman and Robin, because they fixed him in Batman Forever. They actually fix his psychoses in that movie. They like, I choose to be. Now I don't have to be. I choose to be. And then the third one, he's like, oh,
They
my
also gave
problems
him
are
rubber
solved.
nipples though. So like I don't know if we can really take that as
True.
gospel. They did give him
True.
rubber. And I was actually so when I was watching it last night with Nicole Kidman being like Dr. Chase Meridian, like uh there was with mental health challenges that we see throughout the entire Batman franchise, not even this one, but like I mean now with the Joker and with oh gosh, what is Paul Dano's character?
The
Who's
Riddler.
he gonna be? Is
Gonna be
he
the
the
Riddler,
Riddler?
yeah.
Is
Paul
he gonna be the
Dano is the
Riddler?
Riddler, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's gonna be the Riddler, and I'm assuming the next one he was just like crazy person in this one. And the guy who, oh gosh, what is his name? Cillian Murphy. Is it Cillian Murphy? What was he
Yeah.
No,
wearing?
Scarecrow, yeah.
Scarecrow. Yeah.
Scarecrow. That's it. That's what I'm thinking of. Scarecrow. There's like very clearly mental health challenges that are happening with these villains, but there's more of like an empathy towards them now. Whereas back then with Nicole Kidman, she was like, they're nuts. They're
Oh yeah.
absolutely nuts. And like, it's like, or they say he's like Two-Face's coin. It's his Achilles heel. And you're like, no shit, Nicole. Like, no, really? He flips a coin and he makes a decision and we should exploit that. Absolutely. 100%. And there's kind of, it's like a disregard almost for the challenges that are happening. Like it's like Two-Face is, according to Batman and according to Nicole Kidman, he has, what's now known as DID, multiple personality disorder. And so they're like, oh yeah, if you've gone through enough trauma to split your personality, he's got to be really whacked. And you're like, well, that's not great that you're saying that, but I guess so. Like, so just it's so outlandish and it was a sign of the times, right? So like, could you make that movie now and say the same thing about a person with DID? Absolutely not, right? But they did, but that's what it was like in the 90s. There was less understanding of mental health challenges than that we do have now.
Well, I mean, even when you go to the Nolan trilogy and even something like
Mm.
Dark Knight and that iteration of Two-Face and Joker, I mean, it's Bale or Batman or Bruce Wayne or whatever struggling, trying to apply the logic to the insanity, when in the reality it's like, no, there is no logic. This person just wants to light fires and watch them burn and smile and laugh about it, and that is just the way they are. And I mean, that really gives a different side of bent on the sort of mental health issue around it, whereas Batman has always sort of looked inward and kind of tortured himself, not realizing that, okay, wait a minute, I'm actually the lesser of two evils. There's way worse out there than the shit I'm doing to myself.
Mm-hmm. And I also think like what's interesting is that, when these films came out, there was no streaming. There was no, you couldn't watch these movies a million times over without going and renting them from the video store. And there was such a change from, like, you look at Batman, 1989 Batman, through to Batman Forever, like Harvey Dent is in both of them, right? Like Two-Face is in both of them. But in Batman, he's played by Billy D. Williams, and he's like a normal stand-up guy. And then suddenly it's Tommy Lee Jones, and he's covered in half red paint, and he's insane. But there's no connection, right? Like they're not like, well, here's how he got from this to this. There's nothing. They're just like, accept it. He's nuts now. Please go ahead and accept this.
Well, they almost treated those Batman movies like Bond movies. There'd be a couple of crossover characters, but for the most part, it was like, this is the bubble, you're existing in it.
Yeah.
Move forward.
I tried to look up the timeline last night. Like, please put all of the movies in a timeline, because like for when you're thinking about the 3 different like iterations of it, you're thinking about like the Riddler being in Jim Carrey, then being Paul Dano, not really connected. You think about Harvey Dent there's 3 iterations of Harvey Dent, right? There's Billy Dean Williams, and then there's Tommy Lee Jones, and then there's Aaron Eckhart, and it's like all 3 are completely separate, but yet somehow the same person. And so you can't really put them into a timeline. Like I was looking it up, like chronologically, where do these movies all go? Like, how do you find the common thread through the Joker's timeline, and how do you find the common thread through all these timelines? It doesn't exist, because there's no way to connect them, because they're all individual films.
I just found a new Twitter feed, or whatever you call it, called All the Right Movies. I'm sure they've been around a while. And they've been doing these things. So actually, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things was that last week they did one on Batman Returns. And apparently in the original script, Billy D. Williams was supposed to play Harvey Dent again. And at the end of the film, he was going to die with electroshock, the way that
and then turn into Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes.
Nice.
That's quite a switch, actually.
Nice.
But Burton was planning on a 3rd film, and it was going to be so whereas in Batman Returns, the last, Catwoman dies with electroshock with Shrek, it was going to be Harvey Dent that was down there, and that happens to him. And they decided against it. They went with this ending. And then, interestingly enough, according to All the Right Movies, Burton was working on his 3rd film, and WB had signed off on it. And then families were so mad at Batman Returns, and McDonald's was so mad because they were trying to sell toys, which I remember.
The cups.
Like they were trying
to sell. Oh my
gosh,
if I could go back in time with those cups, I would love to have those somewhere.
I have one. Somebody have one? Forever.
No, you don't.
I do. I'll send you.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
But that was slapped. They cut him. They said that's when they said no, we can't do this, because the second one, Burton really let his Edward Scissorhands fly. And so they're like, well, we need a new direction. And Joel Schumacher came in with his laser beams, and this is where it went. Because they needed to.
God bless those laser beams.
Laser beams.
God bless those laser beams. And like Bane, that's another person who, like, it's like with Bane, he had, this origin story in Batman and Robin, right? Where Poison Ivy was putting all this whatever horrible plant stuff into his system, and it turned him into Bane. But in the new ones, he's like just mad and a dude. I don't know.
But that's actually closer to the story. I remember at the time I
don't care for accurate.
Okay, but and I normally don't either. Like, it's not like scads of Batman comics. But when I was a kid, my parents bought me, I guess we were going away or something. They bought me the book of that story. I think it's Batman Nightfall. And then and I was like, oh, Bane's going to be in this movie, and Bane's the best. He's like this genius, and he's hopped up on like toxins and all this stuff. And then they got him out there, and he's going, bomb, and he's like this. I remember I was so angry. I was like, what have you done to him?
All that teaches you, don't read. Just don't read, and you can enjoy the film. Because I loved it, and I didn't read that book beforehand. So maybe that's the lesson here, children. Never learned to read. No,
There is something else to bring up though, which is interesting, especially considering this time period in Batman, because we also had the offshoot of the animated show and Kevin Conroy's sort of iteration thereof. And I mean, for so many people out there, their Batman is the animated one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Batman's never been animated to me.
And especially considering when the show started, it was right after Returns, I want to say. So like it was Burton, and then we had the offshoot into animated, and then it went to Schumacher.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't I thought it was 91, but it might have been 93 when the animated series came. Either way, it was totally tied and not tied at all to the Burton
Oh
film.
yeah, no, but I mean, I'm just saying in general, because I
Yeah.
mean it was 92. I just pulled it up, but
Okay.
The
one
Mask of Phantasm. Is that
like
the one you're looking at?
inadvertently one
93.
informs the other in one way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because they're all pulling from the Bob Kane, but they're all going to be giving various interpretations or iterations of what it means to be this character. And I mean, they've all come, while they've all been very similar, they're all pulling from the original source material in such a way that there are common threads that will never ever change.
Mm-hmm. There's like 6 villains. And we'll just keep remaking them.
Yeah, I mean, to you, is Jack Nicholson the Joker, or is Mark Hamill the Joker, or is Heath Ledger, or is Joaquin Phoenix? You know, they all bring their own twist to these characters, which are so iconic. I mean, God, in the animated one, you know, Bull from Night Court did the voice of Two-Face. And I mean, that's not something I can ever really equate to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like when I think of the Joker, I think of Jack Nicholson, but I also, and like instantly I think, well, it's Jack Nicholson. And then immediately I'm like, no, Heath Ledger did not essentially die to not be known as Heath Ledger, or as the Joker rather. Like it was such an insane performance, and such that like he has solidified himself as the Joker, like in my thought process for the rest of time. Doesn't matter who else plays him. I'm like, it's Heath Ledger, despite the fact that when I think of it, I immediately think of Jack Nicholson.
But would we be viewing the Heath Ledger's Joker the same if we had not had Jack's Joker? Because I mean, especially in my mind with the 1989 Batman, I mean, like I said, Jack had first billing in my mind. Every time I rewatch that movie, this is a Joker movie featuring Batman. It's not a Batman movie.
Yeah. Kind of like The Flash. It's a Flash movie featuring Batman,
the Flash
but
had the
not
Flash in
to
it,
me.
But Batman movie. Yeah, no,
it was
sure.
a Batman movie featuring the Flash.
There's all sorts of reasons that we don't talk about the Flash in the Flash movie, but let's from a publicist standpoint, you would know that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, what a disaster. What a disaster.
But you know, you make a great point though, Dave, because you talk about, would you have this without this? And you don't have Nicholson without Cesar Romero.
Well, there's that, yeah.
I mean, there is a transition about this, and these characters are changing. So, I mean, we've already talked about it a little bit, but I'm just wondering how our relationship, what you think about our relationship to Batman has changed, and the Batman stories and films. Because, like, you know, I want to show Batman to a friend of mine, and he's 26, and he says, "I've seen clips. It looks ridiculous." I'm like, do you understand?
It is ridiculous. That's why it's good.
Yeah, but you see, he grew up, he grew up with Dark Knight was his first Batman films experience. And like all of the Batman since Nolan have tried to take an aspect of Nolan and in them. And those ones, like you said, the camp is great, but if you aren't used to camp, you don't know what you're watching. So I don't
I feel like movies
Flash is pure Nolan, so
and like movies expect more of their audiences now. That's the reality, right? Is that the movies were simpler, the plot was the same, and I mean, plot is still the same, right? It's superhero, you are introduced to superhero has a problem, superhero fixes said problem. Like that's the plot of every single superhero movie ever made. But back then, they didn't we just accepted what was on the screen, and now it's like, well, why is this happening? How did this character get there? What's the backstory? You like they and maybe that's a symptom of Marvel. Maybe that's a symptom of the Marvel world building, is that we expect there to be a big backstory, and if there isn't, the audiences are disappointed.
Because I mean, are we getting tired of comic book movies? I would say yes. But are we getting tired of Batman? No.
No.
Because Batman
Never.
is this singular, unique, relatable, and also
Because
fallible
anybody can be Batman.
and human character that we relate to, that we
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Because we see our strengths in him, and we see our flaws in him.
Yeah. And because he has no superpowers. Like, that's the point, is that literally anybody with enough money and enough anger could be Batman.
Yeah, only
right?
Chris
Like
Hemsworth could pick up the hammer, but you know, if you're rich enough, you can have a bat cave and a scowl.
100%. And only Spider-Man can shoot webs out of his hands or whatever, unless you're Tobey Maguire, and then I guess Tobey Maguire was the only one who did shoot out of his hand.
Shoot him. Yeah,
right. And the rest of them had canisters or whatever. See, you can clearly see I am very Batman isolated in my superhero loving, but anybody can be Batman, and that's why he goes on through time, is that you can relate to him, because you can understand that if your parents were killed in front of you, that would make you upset, and that would make you angry, and you would want to seek revenge on whoever did it. But with anything else, it's like, well, with Superman, I couldn't really do that if I wanted to, because I can't fly, and I couldn't really do it because I don't have lasers that come out of my eyes. But with Batman, you're like, yeah, I could learn Krav Maga. For sure I could do that. And that's why people will always connect with Batman, because he's the everyman with rage.
And that's why we always connect with the villains in Batman, because we've all been angry. We've all been the Joker. We've all been misunderstood and made fun of, the Penguin. We've all been Two-Face. We've all been, Harley Quinn. We've all been whatever you want to say. Like, there are so many, like, all the characters in sort of the Batman universe have this degree of relatability, which makes them work over and over again. Like, we can't relate to a god picking up a hammer and flying around the universe, but not being able to get with his girlfriend, who all of a sudden has cancer. And then, it gets weird, Batman, it keeps super friggin' simple.
Yeah. Speaking of the Penguin, so again, I watched Batman Returns last night, and like, how terrible of Oswald's parents for this poor baby to be born with a birth defect, who has hands that look like flippers, and they're like, to the sewer with you. It's like, how terrible is that plot line? And he's like, suddenly he's like eating raw fish in front of people, and he's like, and he at one point he has this monologue where he talks about, like, I found my name, I am Oswald Cobblepot, and I will find my parents to find out why they did this to me. I've grown up in a sewer. And I'm like, this is awful. Like, poor kid. Of course he's mad. Like, I'd be mad if my parents threw me in a sewer. I would want to, seek out rage and revenge on that. But like, what a terrible storyline for the poor Penguin. And like, his friends are only penguins. I also looked up right at the end of the movie. Again, spoiler alert, again, if you haven't seen a movie since 1992, that sounds like a you problem. But like, when they essentially kill the Penguin at the end of the movie, and the penguins, like the Grand Emperor penguins, are like walking him down the ramp into the I was like, those are definitely people in those costumes.
Oh yeah, totally.
And so I looked up who played the penguins in the movie, and they're uncredited. So if you know who played the penguins in Batman Return, please, like, I don't know, write me on Twitter or something, because I need to know. I need to know who played these penguins and why they never got their moment of fame. Because I will help with that.
I read that the penguins were played by people, animatronics, but they were using real penguins. And the reason there were people dressed as the penguins is because the penguins would follow them because they were dressed as penguins. So now
call them, but they're just penguin, but then somebody has to hold the body. They can't train these emperor penguins to be like, pick up the body, carry it down the ramp.
No, not in that. No, in that scene, they're people. But I mean, whenever they're using the penguins.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
They have, like, when they're marching through the streets, they have people there. And they said, and there's a story that one of the real penguins started to try to cuddle up to and stay with one of the animatronic penguins. Like they
Oh, I
felt like,
remember that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's and the and animal rights groups had to be on set because they were strapping rockets to the back of real penguins, so they were making sure that, yeah, like I mean, I don't,
Oh
the
yeah, the
rockets weren't
rockets. I
real.
remember the rockets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was interesting too, and I just learned this. I'm just excited about things I've learned. The bird that she puts in her mouth, real bird.
Oh.
She actually, because they put a fake bird in her mouth and she didn't like it, so they brought in a trainer and she actually put the real bird in her
You
mouth.
would like, okay, but who would like having a real bird in their mouth versus a fake one?
She just
Like,
said it
I
didn't
would
look
rather
good.
it be fake and not like, I don't know, bite the inside of my mouth. But also, that would never happen. Like animal rights activists, that would never happen these days. You can't put a
No.
real bird in your mouth. I also, like, speaking of Michelle Pfeiffer and the bird, I was also thinking about, it's like a weird moment where Batman's on the ground, she's on top of him, and she like licks his face from like his chin up to the top of his beak. If it's like bat beak, is it a beak? I don't know, the little pointy bit
His
on his
mask.
helmet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's his mask, but it's like there's like a weird pointy, it's like his nose, I guess, is what it
Oh
is
yeah.
in the mask. And she like licks up, and I'm like, man, that must have been very uncomfortable to film, right? Like very uncomfortable. Like, hold on, we need to get another shot of Michelle Pfeiffer licking your face.
That's,
Ugh,
yeah, that's not a
yick,
pleasant image.
yick, yeah, yick. But I mean, that goes again, these are things that wouldn't happen with, the introduction of CGI and the understanding of animal rights. I'm not going to say that animal rights is a new thing, obviously, but the
No.
understanding of it is rather new in filmmaking. I mean, you talk about Disney and the Lemmings, right? Like throwing them over the edge. But do you know about this?
From what?
Oh, there was a video in the 60s or the 50s that Disney put out saying that lemmings commit suicide en masse together, and they like jump off cliffs together, and they filmed it. Like they filmed all these little lemmings jumping off cliffs, and anyways, turns out they were pushing them off.
What?
Yeah.
I
It's like
had
a
not
thing.
heard.
It came out like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's like, yeah, there's like they were pushing them off, and it was all a lie. So but that would never fly these bad expression. That would never
But
fly these days.
Here
But
all
it
week,
wouldn't,
everybody.
right? Like it wouldn't. And you think back as far as 1992, that's like, I mean, that was really not that long ago. It was only 30 years ago. And I mean, strapping a rocket onto a penguin is, I don't know if we would do that in today's filmmaking.
But it's not a real rocket. It's a cardboard one. It's production.
Fine, but do you think they would use real life penguins to do it, or would they do CGI?
I think they'd
It's
see.
These
not a
days,
real
no,
rocket.
they do
Obviously, it's
CGI.
not a real rocket. It's
It would
not
be
a real
CGI.
rocket.
Yeah.
It's a live
Yeah, it would be
ammunition.
CGI. It would probably, yeah, it's CGI. It's not a real rocket. They used real rockets in the 90s.
But again, it goes back to your point just about these movies, about how, production design, and it's the art of production
They were
design
so
that
simple.
we've lost a little bit of.
We've lost production design because everything can be done with computers, right? Like you can see there were times in there was, I mean, I'm watching TV shows where you can very clearly tell that they're sitting in front of a green screen, right? Like green screens are so easy to make and so much cheaper to make than the productions. I read it was either Batman or Batman Returns took up half of the WB lot when they shot it, like half of it, like, which is a massive lot in LA, right? So it's like you would never get that. You would never get one movie taking over half the lot these days, right? So it's like you're losing that, big expansive world that they built for CGI.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true.
And that all started back in the day when people were sitting in cars and they had the screen going by and they're just sitting like they're in the car doing this and
driving like this, because this is how you drive, right?
Exactly,
like moving your
yeah.
arms back and forth comically. Yeah, I mean, you don't get that anymore. It's both a blessing and a curse, really, for filmmaking, is that you can do things that you could never do in traditional set design, but you lose the traditional set design, right?
Well,
At the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I see in these ones, right? Like when I watched Batman, rewatched it for this pod, I was just so struck by the visuals. Like, yes, it's campy, It can't be by today's standards. At the time, it was the friggin' Dark Knight. Like people were like, "What is this?" Like nobody was going, "Oh, look how fun this is!" When Joker is shocking a guy to death. You know, it's not. It's just. It was so different, but the set design is
Yeah.
so gorgeous,
But
and
it was
it's a
comical. He
massive
had a
shift.
hand thing. It was like a buzz hand thing. It was
It's true, but
funny.
it was that blend, right? It was like we're
Yeah.
moving somewhere. It,
Yeah.
it actually one of the things I want to go back to something, Dave. You said something before about about how things have changed and how he's always relatable, but it's always changed. How we can and I think it was you, Ally, that said anybody can be Batman. I think
Yeah.
it's so fascinating how Batman takes over for Superman. I think that's fascinating because until Batman, we had 4 Superman movies in I think 12 years. It goes Superman 2, 1, 2, well 3 and 4 obviously, but I think 4 was Quest for Peace, and it was like this is done. And then you can't get Superman back on screen for like 15 years. Literally, it's all Batman. I think that's it. Like,
Mhm.
oh, that was what you said, David, about any Thor can't, not everybody can pick up the hammer, but anybody can
Mhm.
put on the mask. And I think that's significant. I think that's a big change because we don't have other superhero movies. We have attempts. We have, really terrible ones. Like there's a Captain America one in 1990 that's so bad that nobody even remembers it. But like,
The Fantastic Four one that never got released.
oh,
There's a ton that have just sort
right.
of disappeared into the ether that just never worked. But Batman always works.
Batman always works. And I think the relatability, the idea that, I think there's a real psychological shift there from the hero is the other to the hero is you. I think that's a big change. And I
Mhm.
think it's interesting that the films continue to get darker. And I think society is, our understanding of things has changed, as we talked about.
Mhm.
I also think a lot of that has to do with if the hero is us, how we interact with that. Like you said, now he's running around saying, "I am vengeance," um, because the world has
That's a
failed.
damn shame. You are not vengeance. You are Batman. Okay. If you don't say I am Batman in at least at least once in each movie, I'm leaving. I'm
Did he
out.
not say it?
He said I am
He
vengeance.
says,
No, he
"I am
did. He
vengeance."
does
Does
say
he
it.
ever call himself Batman in that one? I don't remember.
Probably not. Probably not.
Everybody else calls
I
him that.
couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but probably not.
But it's a crazy change. Like it's such an interesting change to me
Hmm.
in regards to that. And Batman continues to get heavier. Nolan changes everything. And I think
Hmm.
the Nolan films are phenomenal. Like you said, Ali, they're great films. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a cop movie than the 1989 Batman. Like like if you take
Hmm.
if you put a coat on him and make him a hard drinking chain smoking detective from
Hmm.
1939, it changes nothing. It changes
Yeah.
Especially with him talking like this.
Yeah.
changes some things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing is with the voice from Nolan, like Nolan, anytime I hear the name Christopher Nolan, all I think is just it's like a sound effect in my head that goes right because it's like that's just what he like that's his noise. I don't know. He's like taken that noise and made it his own. It's in the Oppenheimer trailer. It was in Inception. It was,
And
and it's in Christian Bale's voice. So it's really just anytime that Christopher Nolan touches a movie, he's like somebody somewhere, there has to be in there. So I mean, anytime he comes up, I can't think of anything but that noise. But they're great movies. Like they're great. There's cinematic achievements, the performances are insane, but the camp, it's just when I leave a Christopher Nolan Batman movie, you think, wow, that was a really great film. Like loved that movie. It was really great. When you leave a Burton or a Schumacher movie, you go, man, I had a lot of fun. And that's, I think, a big difference between the two franchises.
okay,
Agreed.
well, here's a question then for you both. Who's the best Batman?
George Clooney.
Explain. Explain yourself, woman.
Because he's just rich and mad and he has a Batman MasterCard. Like, it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, obviously he's a superior Batman. I don't like, I mean, no, like, no offense to Ben Affleck, I'm not a big Ben Affleck Batman fan. I'm not a big Ben Affleck fan in general, but that's a whole other conversation. But George Clooney, it was the camp, it was fun, and I really, when I'm sitting down to watch a superhero movie, I want to have a good time, and George Clooney delivered that for me. 100%.
Okay.
And Chris O'Donnell's a babe, so he didn't hurt it either.
Dave, who's the best Batman?
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Keaton, because honestly, it's the best blend of the camp and the humor, but also the serious and the darker nature and the tortured nature of the character.
That's a much more reasonable answer. Yeah. No, it is. It is. And he's right. He's fully right in everything that he's saying. It is the Keaton era, Batman and Batman Returns. It was the perfect blend of all the things that is Batman, right? But there's just something about Batman and Robin that I cannot give up. Can't give up.
You know, phenomenal. Batman Forever is my favorite one, and I think
Val Kilmer.
I loved it, and I love Kilmer as Batman as well. But going back on the rewatches, and we just finished the Dark Knight trilogies, myself and Anders, and I'm like, and I look back at them all. I think if I were to say which is the best Batman, I think it really is a toss-up to me between Bale and Keaton. With Bale, it might be the stories he had. To be perfectly honest, I think that might, because I think he has the best stories. But I like the balance that Keaton had more so than what we see in others. I think everybody who's been Batman for the most part has brought something different. And I will say, Ally, that spoiler for the Flash, but there's a redemption. There's a redemption for Clooney that I appreciated. I was like, he needed some redemption. He goes on tours and apologizes for the Batman film when he's doing interviews for other films. It's hilarious.
I've worked with publicists who have worked with him who said that he's like the most lovely man. Like, he's very kind and very nice. And if I ever, get to be in his ecosphere, I will immediately be like, don't you ever apologize for those movies ever again. Every time you apologize, I want you to see my face going, it's my favorite movie. Like, don't because man, like, he was so good. And the fact that he apologized, it makes me sad. I'm sad about that. He was great. And I mean, Val Kilmer's nipples aside.
Clooney has his as well.
I know they both had nipples, and I'm pretty sure that Clooney also had like a weird like rubber bulge that was unnecessary as well. They like had to make it like his bat suit like oh my gosh, the words escaped me. Anatomically correct. There you go. Which is a weird move for a rubber suit. It's the camp.
But I mean, Steve, going back to your point about Bale, because I mean, the Bale movies could have only ever been a trilogy because he's got the character has this redemptive arc, which is such a great payoff. And I mean, I think that's why we've gravitated to the Flash and Keaton there so well, because I mean, again, this is a podcast S for spoilers. He dies, and having Keaton die kind of gives us
multiple times
gives us an emotional sort of redemptive payoff to let sort of that Batman sit in peace. Yeah, as the story moves on, as it all moves on,
Yeah, but I mean, he had the original Bat car, the original Bat plane. Like, it was nostalgia A++, right? Like, that was what it was for. It was that.
And also to go back to our point about production design, like, they built that Batcave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like, no one cares about the Flash.
I know.
Sorry, but like, they don't. And like, it's so when they're bringing in Keaton, it's like, hell yeah, let's get DC. Like, people loved Batman back then. Let's get them back in. And if we bring in Keaton, we'll get them back in. We bring in Nicolas Cage, who was never Superman, right? Like, he was never Superman, but he campaigned for it in the 80s. So it's like, it was such fan service. Like, give them Nicolas Cage as Superman, give them Michael Keaton, give them George Clooney, and they'll be back in the theater. And I mean, and here's hoping that it works. It's still in theaters right now. So
no, Flash, you're right. I mean, delays, Ezra Miller, everything aside, the way they structured this movie was to kind of resell us on DC, regardless of who comes back and who doesn't. It's to resell us on what DC was, because I mean, even when you look at sort of the lore of all the Marvel comics, there was a ton of crossover. They're all back and forth and blah blah blah. With DC, other than like Justice League, there wasn't a lot of, Batman and Aquaman fighting crime or this, that, or the other. Like, there wasn't nearly as much crossover. The DC stories were inherently a lot more standalone, especially when you go like sort of old school with it.
I also think like with Justice League, and they were trying, like with Zack Snyder, they were trying to be like, we'll go serious, like we'll do this like really emotionally and I don't know if it worked. I don't think that it, so they were like, well, you know what did work? The camp. Let's see if we can bring that back in, because clearly us trying to get like, we are, DC is elevated Marvel, it's bigger stories, it's more dark, it's more serious, it didn't work. So now they're like, fuck it, bring back Keaton, figure it out that way, like just to get the audiences back in that way. And I mean, I'm here for it.
Okay.
They made a fan out of me. They made a fan out of me. Let me tell you, I was cheering in the theater.
Okay, I gotta say it. We're not talking about the Flash, but I'm going to talk about the Flash.
Okay.
The more I think about the Flash, the angrier I get at the Flash.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. It's a party that not everyone's invited to. That's the way I can describe it. That's how I felt about it.
All right.
All the nostalgia in Batman, in the Flash, is for people that knew DC before the year 2000. All of
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
there is
100%.
absolutely nothing for anybody else, and that's
because anybody who's under that age is going to Marvel movies. But the people who are older than that age are sick of Marvel movies and want something else.
But don't you see, that's the point. DC has just said, hey, weren't we great in the good old days? Like, even
they were.
Even yeah, okay. But even the Nicolas Cage reference, which I loved. I saw it with a friend of mine. Again, he's 26, and he said, why? Didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about Clooney as Batman. They bring in Adam West. These are all major spoilers for the Flash, but I'm just saying, all the nostalgia.
Adam West.
Oh yes, Adam West.
When is Adam West in it?
Adam West is in it. Absolutely.
Where? I've seen it.
He's in the multiverse.
He's running in
the
time
world.
Thing.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
He is there. I hear his voice.
I didn't even notice that. I would have I didn't even notice that.
I mean, they met Christopher Reeve, an old school Supergirl.
Yeah, I saw
George
Reeves.
I
did see that.
George Reeves.
I did see that.
But
so yeah.
But this is what
I was looking for Nicolas Cage at that point, because I was like, I heard that he's in it, and I was like, where is he? And then I saw him, and then I was, cheering. So I'm sure that I missed it because of that.
But if you really want to get people in, you have to invite people in. You have to include where's Smallville?
Make new fans, not only talk to your old fans.
That's it. And I mean, I liked that. Although I was like, I know everything that happened with Kilmer, but all these other guys have been through stuff, and you don't have any Kilmer reference in this. Like, why? Like what?
Yeah.
But
do you think that, when they made the film, Ezra Miller, had not had the publicity challenges that they had until after the film was shot, which is why they decided to, well, I guess we're gonna have to go ahead and do whatever. Well, like publicly, obviously they had issues prior to this that was not public knowledge. No, with the Flash, like it's like with making this movie, they were banking on the Flash bringing in new audience members, and the Keaton of it all, the Nicolas Cage of it all, the George Clooney of it all, bringing in the old fan members who were not going to Marvel movies. So I think maybe they were banking on Ezra doing that.
Well, I think you see that with the ending, the change in the ending, and you and I talked about this. We talked about this before we start recording. They recorded 3 endings, and then they ended up with this final shot. But like, I just the more I came out of it, like Spider-Man: No Way Home, which I think may be now. I mean, I'm talking about the new one or anything like that, but in terms of the films we've seen, may have been the perfect blend of okay, we're going to give you Toby, and we're going to give you some of his villains. Oh, but don't forget Andrew and his villains.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
forget,
yeah.
we're going to give you everything. So even, and I had people saying, oh my gosh, Andrew Garfield, he's my Spider-Man. And I would say, no, Toby's my Spider-Man, but that's okay because we were all invited to the party.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my beef with Flash. Like, you didn't even have Grant Gustin in this thing. Like, if I was Grant Gustin, I'd be furious. Like, you can't, you're going to show me the Flash from like 1930, and you're not going to show me the one that the people under the age of 25 actually care about. You're not bringing in new fans.
Mm,
You're sitting in the 90s. And
yeah.
I love these 90s films. I love them. They are fantastic and fun and like everything we talked about so far. But that's what really bugged me about the Flash is
That's fair.
they threw a party and didn't invite anybody that they want to carry the franchise over.
See,
Uh,
that's fair. But also as somebody who was invited to the party, like I'm not mad at it because
totally
I was
fair.
in it. Like I was in it. I was on the invite list. Like I was there, right? So it's but I get like I didn't see it with somebody who wasn't invited. So I didn't get that ounce of sadness with my arms thrown up in the air. Right? I
Well, no, but
got
I
a
mean,
room, I was in a room full of people who are in the film industry who are all like, I'm the baby in the room, right? So I'm the
Right.
youngest, and all of them were like, Michael Keaton, right? So it was like I was in a great audience to watch it with. But I was not invited to the party. So but I do get that side of things. We should be more inclusive with our superhero films.
but it also plays to the idea that just with this movie, it really felt like, okay, we're pressing the reset button. This is just
Yeah.
what we have to do.
Yeah.
Like this is them actively pressing the reset button.
Yeah, like something's not working. We got to figure it out. And no, not releasing the director's cut of Justice League. We'll figure it out. We need to do something different. So I agree. Yeah, they're hitting the reset button. I mean, I'll watch whatever the next movie is in hopes that I will see another, nostalgia moment. So it worked for me at least, but I could understand that it wouldn't work for a lot of people. But who knows? Because I'm not the person giving my money to Marvel in theaters, other than apparently Ant-Man. But but like I don't go to see Marvel movies in theaters because it's just not really up my alley for
But I mean,
lack of a
again, like
better.
what are the Marvel movies that have existed the most inside their own bubble? They're the three Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Oh, guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Directed by James Gunn.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's like
Yep.
it's kind of like how all TV shows will soon star Pedro Pascal and some sort of a magical child. Maybe all superhero movies should be directed by James Gunn, starring Pedro Pascal. Listen, guys, we figured it out. Figured out the equation. I do think that The Flash did not have enough. Speaking of figuring things out, there was not enough Jason Momoa in it that would have really taken it over the edge for me personally. But I accept that.
From a fan standpoint or a lady standpoint, looking at Buff.
I mean, maybe a little bit of both. From a
All
lady
right.
fan standpoint. From a
All
lady
right.
fan standpoint. Because I was like, Justice League, like Gal Gadot's there, right? Like, why? Like, where is Jason Momoa? Couldn't you have a small cameo? I think he could have. Maybe like when they were, at the end when there was all the worlds and it looked like water. Maybe he could have just like whoop poked his head out side of the water. That would have been it. I would have loved it. But I don't know. Apparently can't have everything you want.
See, the problem with Gal
Yeah.
Gadot is that we're like audiences are all still kind of stunned that she's still alive in the Fast and Furious universe. So it makes for
Oh,
weird world blending, you know?
it really does. It really does. And that could be a whole other episode because fun-filled fact about me of the day, I am just as passionate about Fast and the Furious as I am about Batman. I love those movies, like family. You know what I mean? Like I'm all for it.
All about family.
All about family. I'm all for it. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. There aren't really a lot of crossovers for actors in different franchises, and she is one of the only ones who can do it all. She's Wonder Woman. Huh?
Dang right she is. I love Gal.
Dang right she is. Yeah, she's great. She's great.
My my secret revealed I actually supported Wonder Woman 1984 for the most part. So so
There
I
you
mean
go.
I like Wonder Woman. Anyway,
She's great. Whip
um
of truth. Because men lie.
I do.
Well,
In
yeah, we do.
reality.
We do.
Men lie.
The lasso of truth. It's not a whip of truth.
Or the lasso.
That's like Catwoman. That's
a
like...
whip. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I was actually just watching, or because I was just watching the Batman movies, they were talking about Chase Meridian, Nicole Kidman in Batman Forever was talking about, she's like, coming on to Michael Keaton super strong, and he's like, whoa, why are you in lingerie and also calling me on the bat signal? And she's like, I heard you like strong women, or do I need a whip and some leather, right? And
Yeah,
you're like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So maybe, yeah, you're right, that's probably where I got it from. Lasso of truth, not the Catwoman whip of shame.
The whip of shame.
The whip of shame.
Which, by the way,
But if you're into that,
Piper
that's
really
okay.
learned how to use that thing.
100%.
Sorry, what was that, Dave?
If you're into that, that's okay.
That's okay too. 100%. You do you, boo. Whatever. Let your freak flag fly. I'm here for it.
It's fair. I could keep talking about this forever, but we should start to wrap this up. We've talked about Batman all over the case, but with the Batman Legacy films, we should screen it or skip it. Batman 90's Legacy, screen it or skip it.
All four?
You can pick.
Screen it. Oh.
All four?
Okay, well, my answer will be the same. If franchise as a whole, stream it. Franchise as individual films, still stream it. Watch it. Don't deny yourself any longer the joy of the camp and the joy of the a guy who's just rich and mad. Like, that's I can get behind that.
Okay, Dave?
Stream it. Watch it.
Watch it. Watch it.
They don't even have the Batman voice in those ones, do they?
No.
I don't think they do.
No.
It's still worth it though. Watch it.
Well, okay, let me change the question slightly. Are there some that you would toss away? Or some that obviously you probably have your favorites, but are there some that you would say is your least favorite of the four?
No.
Really?
Like none of, like, yeah, no, I think they're all great for their own reasoning. Like, I think that I would argue watch them all. Like, there's no movie. I mean, you're looking at I'm on my second screen here, I have Batman and Robin with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman got 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not great, obviously. It's got a 3.8 on IMDb. It's not great. It's not great from a critical standpoint. But you're not supposed to go into this movie from a critical standpoint. You're supposed to go in to have fun. And I think that it delivers on the fun. And you need to, this is, you're both critics, a message to all critics out there. Sometimes you need to take a movie and for what it is and not expect it to be more than it is. And this movie knows what it is. It's camp, it's fun, it's dumb, it's silly, and it delivers on all of those things.
All right. Yeah, I hear. I've often felt that. It really drives me nuts when something is either 90% on Rotten Tomatoes or 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. Like, sometimes movies can just, like, I'm here for this ride. Did I enjoy myself? Did I have a good time? And that's what it is. And it doesn't have to be some like big hypothesis about the universe and all. Like, it doesn't have to be that. Sometimes it can just be a really fun superhero movie. And that's what Batman and Robin was. And that's what Batman Forever was. I think that Batman Returns and Batman were critically more acclaimed, and they were, critically, quote unquote, better films. But I think that the Schumacher side of things was like, it slapped. So do not skip any of them.
David?
Watch them in order.
Watch them in order?
Yeah.
It's like no continuity.
I know. I still do it though. It's fun. See? It's fun. Doesn't have to have continuity. Doesn't have to be a universe. It can just be 4 movies in order that are fun. Because you can even see with the gunshot noises that go from 89 to 97, like the gunshot noises in 89 with Michael Keaton, it's like that weird, like, pew, pew, that, like, it's like a stock image of a gun, right? And there's even like some guy falls off something in the factory when Jack Nicholson is getting thrown in the acid, and there's the screaming noise that is the most like common used screaming noise for stock images, and it's like
the Wilhelm scream.
And Yeah, that's it. And they use that in the movie. And like you can see the progression from that to 97, where in 97, it's like it sounds like a real gunshot. So it's like just you had to watch them in order. You got to appreciate it, because if you jumble them up, you're not going to get the appreciation for how far it came over those 12 years or
But
9 years.
even you describing this makes me miss the Adam West movie, and thwap and thonk
Yeah.
and all those
Yeah.
fun
See?
sound, the graphics they would put up,
100%. 100%.
That
Yeah.
on that level, I appreciate Batman and Robin far more because it was the closest to getting the Adam West Batman you're ever going to see on screen. Like
Yeah.
people are getting hit in the head and you're hearing bonk.
Yeah.
And they're jumping in the air and you're hearing spring, and it's like it's like a cartoon. Ironically. Yeah, I Dave, do you have any you'd throw away?
No, I mean, honestly, from, even expanding it out to West and into now Pattinson, they all bring something different and interesting to the table. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to watch Bruce Wayne. We want to watch the Batman because, like Ali said, anybody can be Batman.
Mm-hmm.
He's not from another planet. He doesn't have a special power.
All you gotta do is apply for a Bat MasterCard.
He is the everyman who is trying to be more than himself, which is something that we all aspire to.
Mm-hmm. Everybody hopes that at the end of the day, when they're walking down the street and they see an old lady getting attacked or something, that you have the courage to be able to go and do something, right? Like no one is sitting there going, man, I hope in that situation that I run away, right? Like you're saying, no, like
we all want to be Batman.
We all want to be Batman. Everybody wants to be Batman. Everyone wants to be the hero, and they want to be the person who has enough courage to stand up for what's right and stand up for their city and stand up for the people. And that's why Batman is and will continue to be what it always has been, a really great franchise.
I agree. I think I can say screen them, but I think I have to put the addendum on that you said, Allie, which is you have to go in for accepting them what they are and appreciating them from when they came. Like you can't go watch a movie from 1975 and say, looks fake. Not like it would now. And it's like, no, you have to understand what they went through to get that because of the way that, and I still think, like my rewatches, I have such a deeper appreciation for what they were doing at the time and how drastically crazy it was to do them. Which, by the way, 1989, I didn't realize was what an insane year it was for movies, but that's a whole other story.
It's because I was born that year.
There it is. It's because of you.
It's because of me. We came
back
back to the point here.
We're
back to the point. It's all because of me. No, it's not. But it was a really great year in filmmaking. And so, I mean, I very frequently watch movies that were from that year that are great.
Better stories were told after you were born. That's just what you can say.
That's Boom. That's it. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Bring it back. Back to the point.
But the point being, I think if you can watch them and separate that and let it be what it is, I think anybody can enjoy them. And I think that the Keaton and Nicholson movie is awesome. It's still great, and Batman Forever to me is still my favorite. I mean, none of them are perfect. They all have their flaws. I still don't understand.
As do real life people.
Wow. That's really the message we've been trying to get to today.
Nobody is perfect, and neither is Batman, which is why you too can be Batman.
Spoken by a true fan of Batman and Robin.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's get nuts.
If you want to get nuts, we can do that. That's how I should have opened this podcast.
I think we just did.
There it is. Yeah. You know what? Both of you, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about Batman and about these films, because I love them and they're so fun. And I just really appreciate the fact that you were both able to spend some time with me today to chat about it. You can plug your wares. David?
Ladies first, please.
Oh, ladies first. Ally.
Ladies first, my wares. I'm not really, it's like, this sounds really bad. I'm not personally that active on social. But my the agency that I work with is very active on social. So that's Route 504 PR on all platforms.
And we
Lovely.
work with them constantly, and we love it.
Yes.
So
Oh,
you're in our
stop. We
industry.
They
love
are
you
phenomenal.
guys. We
I
love you
love
guys.
all of you at 504 are amazing. Appreciate you
Oh,
guys.
that's so nice. I love you guys.
Oh,
Obviously, this has been really fun. I had a really great time. I'm a Batman fanatic, so I'm really will take any opportunity to talk at length about my love of the Caped Crusader.
phenomenal. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you coming on. And I'm going to remember what you said about Fast and Furious.
Yeah. Dave, you got to plug your wares.
Yes.
Well, in case you don't already know, I mean, I know these two know, but my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the editor and publisher over at In the Seats and theseats.ca for all the latest and greatest in the world of film, television, basically the movie at large. But I'm also the host and producer of one of your favorite podcasts, In the Seats With, where I sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain on current projects, state of the industry, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion, which you can find over on all podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and we archive all of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So go give us the like, subscribe, the 5-star rating wherever you humanly possibly can, because it all counts, it all matters, and we love you for it.
What an elevator pitch.
He's got it down.
What a guy. That
Wow.
was like, hold on, let me get my script. Got this down. Well done, you. What an elevator pitch. I appreciate
Well,
that.
I mean, 550 odd episodes in,
That's right.
I can
You
pretty much do
crushed
it
it.
blindfolded now. So
Yeah, you crushed it. Well done, you.
Well, I definitely appreciate you both. And actually, at this time, too, I'd like to thank everybody who's been on the podcast up to this point, not just today, but all these episodes coming up. We've had some phenomenal guests and worked with some phenomenal companies as well, like 504, Route 504, and Elevation, the Tarot Group, Mongrel, so many more. And just had some wonderful guests. My gosh, we've had some great people on the show, and I'm looking forward to the next 200 as we move on from here as well. And you can find the next 200 episodes on all platforms. You can find us on YouTube. You can like and subscribe to us there. You can find our podcast wherever podcasts are available: iTunes, Amazon, wherever your favorite podcast is available, you can find us. And as always, if you go to the podcast page at screenfish.net, you can download Fishing for More, and you can get some questions to help you get the conversation started where you are. Now, we're excited to be back for episode 201 next. But as always, first of all, thank you to you all for being here. And as always, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.